10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back. It is Shooting the Shit Uncensored, and it is I, your host, the dad bod god himself, the bald, the beard, the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And today, this morning, bright and early at 9 a.m. here in Sydney, 5 p.m. over in the US, I've got a very special guest, a guest I've been wanting to have on for a long time, Mr. DJ Hyde. Now, DJ Hyde is the owner of Combat Zone Wrestling, one of the longest running indies over in the US. They've been around since 1998. They started out as a training facility, and then eventually came into being a promotion by John Zandig, and then DJ buying CZW around 2009 and becoming its sole owner then. But before I bring out my guest, I want to take a quick second, a quick pause for the cause, if you will, to thank some of those amazing sponsors and help us keep this show going every single week for free for all of you. First up is healthvape.com. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a smoker, you're a vapor, you need to get onto a healthier lifestyle, and Health Vape has you covered. All of their products are no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals, and they're vitamin infused. So go and check out some of their vape and pod products. Use our promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, next up is sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, sleefs.com. Now, if you're an athlete or someone you know is an athlete, you need to check out Sleefs. They've got everything from armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, compression socks, headbands, knee bands, mouth guards, boots. They've even got dirty boxes. And I say this all the time, guys. They keep sending me boxes of these dirty boxes, and they're the most comfortable boxes that I own. How many times can I say boxes in a sentence? I don't know. Boxes. But guys, these are the most comfortable boxes that I've ever owned. I'm an active guy. I got 3 kids. I work out. I work. I do podcasting. I'm always on the go. They stay dry. They stay fresh. So do yourself a favor. Check out sleefs.com. Use that promo code MWAPOD and get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, also make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, because MWA Podcast Network, we bring you some of the best wrestling media content out there in the world today. We got shows like this, Shooting the Shit Uncensored. We've got the Funkin' Kingpin show hosted by ECW original Angel Medina, the Kingpin, and Alan Kwee Funk. We've got Knights of the Gimmick Table hosted by the Dead Presidents, Boogaloo and Lowrider. We've got Wrestling with Sports with King Mega and the Dead Presidents. We've got NXT Roundup. We've got Killing the Business. Guys, we are a non-stop shop here. We got something for you every single day of the week. So if you're listening to us on any of those podcast platforms, give us a 5-star review, leave a comment, let us know what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, so we can improve and make it a more pleasurable experience for all of you. But guys, without further ado, I'm going to bring out my guest of the day, I should say, or early evening where he's at, Mr. DJ Hyde. DJ, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on, DJ. And as I said, you know, in the prior to this, I've been a huge supporter and appreciator of what Combat Zone Wrestling has been doing for nearly 20 years, over 20 years. And to sit there and see where CZW has sort of had its peaks and troughs over the years and valleys. It's been really interesting to watch. But as a promoter for you, like, how stressful is it to run a promotion at the level of a CZW?
Right now, it's probably the most stressful I think it's ever been. You're coming back out of COVID, out of pandemic, which is unheard of. The pandemic hit CZW financially pretty hard. And, most of our talent that we had, you're probably seeing on television somewhere now, or at major promotions, or they have a contract somewhere. I mean, technically the CZW world champion is still Joe Gacy, and, now he's on NXT. So a lot of things are being set up. So it's probably the most stressful I think it's ever been. And man, it's a whole new ball game out there right now.
During the pandemic, was it close to you guys shutting the doors for good? Like how close were you on that? Because I know you guys sort of stopped doing shows for like 18 months to almost, you did.
It never was an issue of shutting the doors for good. It was more of when the pandemic started, I was in Europe with Joe Gacy and Anthony Green, and we were there for WXW 16 Carat to announce CZW's return to Europe. We also were working with companies in England and Hungary and Italy, and setting up a pretty large tour for the company that was going to happen that November. When we came home, our main building was sold. They evicted everybody on something called force majeure, which is like an acts of God clause. And a lot of our equipment was already removed. And what I mean by removed, I mean thrown in a dumpster. So it kind of was, hey, get your what's left and get out type of a thing. And we really didn't have anywhere to go. And everything was very, what's the word I want to use? Very chaotic in the world. And you're talking about thousands upon thousands of dollars, and lots of things are all smoke and mirrors, and it was just a matter of, okay, what's right? Do we try to run something during the pandemic? Do you put it, people at risk? Do you not? Do you don't really know what's what, and you're dealing with a number of things that are out there. So it was just a matter of a lot of challenges to overcome, and now we're kind of back at square one and rebuilding, and it's where we're starting, and we got we have so many ideas. It's just now the support's gone and the stars are gone. I saw the little entrance video watching here for the show, and I was sitting here looking at guys like Lio Rush, and
DJ's just frozen there for a second, guys, but he'll be right back. But he is talking about guys that have been through CZW, and you look at some of the names that have been through Combat Zone Wrestling, like a Joe Gacy, like a John Moxley, Lio Rush, Casey Navarro. Sorry, DJ, you froze there. I was just sort of.
That's okay. It happens. I understand.
But as you were saying, the intro video with some of these guys that have been through Combat Zone Wrestling.
Well, some of these guys have also been straight out of the dojo. I mean, somebody like Leo, Leo started MCW and Maryland Championship Wrestling, and,
so we're just waiting there. We've got a bit of a connection issue. DJ will be back in just a short moment, guys. But in that time, guys, make sure you check out some of our sponsors, such as sleeves.com. All of your products there. You can get all of your athletic wear, headbands, knee bands, ankle bands. Check out.
I have no clue, Piers, why I keep freezing. But because I have amazing internet here. So I'm going to go to a different place in my house.
That's okay.
And try and have this conversation.
So DJ, you actually started, your wrestling career training under the Wild Samoans, correct?
Actually, no.
Oh.
I originally started kind of on the road. I started a very old school way. My original home promotion was ECWA, and I was a fan and went through some personal things, and I met one of the wrestlers, and he started taking me on the road with him, and I would drive him, pay dues, and things along those lines to get wrestling training. And then I discovered the Wild Samoans because he was booked there, and that was kind of how I got to my real first wrestling school. And then I kind of started there and migrated around to other places and eventually found CZW. And I've done all kinds of training all over the world and learned a bunch of different things. But CZW was always my home. And that was kind of where I stuck.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, like, obviously coming into the pro wrestling world, I've seen the Viceland documentary that, they did on at the Tournament of Death. And your career was a professional. I believe you're working in the banking sector. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, a personal issue happened. Can we talk about that? Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. I apologize. My voice and stuff is kind of shot. The weather in my area just has been kicking my butt as of late. But
So we just got DJ froze. He will be back in just a short second, guys. I do apologize about that. There must be a connection issue with him, but he will be back momentarily. There you go, DJ.
Yeah, I'm literally right next to the router. I don't know what's going on. So anyway, so basically I had a personal issue where I was in a relationship and, things didn't go so well.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to jail for a little bit and took a plea bargain. And that's how I got into wrestling, basically. My life was much different back then. The funny thing about it is, because you brought up banking, during the pandemic, I got back to banking. So now I am back working a day job for a bank, and now starting to get back to wrestling. So a lot of things have changed during that time. And that whole situation, I mean, it's a story within a story within a story that we could sit here and talk about all day about, me throwing cops and around and being tased and throwing a guy out of a 3-story window.
It's crazy.
I will say prison's not a fun place. It really isn't. But, fortunately, I had some good people on my side at the time, and things kind of ended up working out for me in the long run, but changed my life a great deal.
Yeah. And I think as well, like sometimes an experience like that can shape you for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like,
I had several experiences growing up that really hit me more around that kind of time frame from the time I was about 17 until I was about 21. It pretty much shaped most of my life. And, you have all those different challenges that you're going through, especially at that age. And, now that I've been training people for so long and I have a lot of great students and a lot of people that I've trained that are phenomenal talents and phenomenal stars all over the world. It's just, it's not just about like, oh, let me show you how to properly put on an armbar. It's more of a mentoring process. And, I don't always tell my students that like, oh, I'm going to teach you every single hold or every single thing. I mean, obviously I'm a 6'4", 300-pound man. There are certain things that I physically don't do as well as others do.
Sure.
And, but I'm more there to be the mentor. I'm more there to, hey, I made these mistakes. Don't be me. This happened to me. I'm not going to let this happen to you. I'm going to make sure that you learn from everything that I did wrong and everything that I did right. And I think that's one of the things that makes me a great trainer too. It's that I made all those mistakes when I was younger. And, it's whether it was on a personal end or on a wrestling end.
Sure. And you mentioned before that once you found CZW, that was then your place where you wanted to be around, your school, your promotion. What was it that about Combat Zone Wrestling that drew you to it?
I think it was more along the lines of the upbringing of me in professional wrestling. And, you know, as a young kid, wrestling was really all that me and my father really had in common. I was a sports guy. He was a car guy. And, you know, he couldn't tell you who Michael Jordan was, but he could take apart a car and put it back together and set parts left over and it run better. So wrestling was always there, but I also grew up in Delaware, and, you know, ECWA was there, but it's definitely more of a family friendly promotion. And as I got into my teen years, you discover ECW, and you discover tapes and tape trading, and at a very early age, I was one of those guys that was at the arena and going up there and watching events and just seeing that. And I think when I got to CCW, it was everything that ECW was, but better. And by that point, I'd already been on the scene and kind of doing some stuff, and I didn't really think I knew that much. But when I got there, it was just something different, and the locker room was just something different. It wasn't just a locker room. It wasn't just you walk in and, you know, hey, you do your thing, and you go out there and you wrestle the people you're supposed to wrestle. And it wasn't that. It was just, it had this aura and a way about it. And when you're there, it seemed home and seemed family. It had a feeling, is the best way I can explain it. And at that point, you kind of never look back. And, you know, at one point you're looking at a guy like John Zandig, like, you know, he's the father of CCW. He is the guy who makes the company, you know, took his students and basically revolutionized what you're watching today. And until, you know, my era, when I take over in 2009 and changed a lot of it. And it's one of those things that, you know, I think anytime somebody gets there and they just fit in and they feel like this is where they belong. And that kind of what happened to me when I first got there. And I never looked back.
Yeah, I mean, I think CZW back in those early 2000s, like, you know, they had CZW guys that were wrestling predominantly only at CZW shows. And I think that the product stood out more because of like taking it to new heights and new levels of what the Western world had really seen before in extreme wrestling. You know what I mean? Like everyone's seen the famous deathmatch tournament that I think IWA did in Japan with Mick Foley and Terry Funk. And I think that was probably like almost like the catalyst for it for a lot of fans getting into it. And I think that when deathmatch fans really discovered like a CZW and even XPW at the time, it was something new and fresh and different for them.
Yeah, it felt different because CZW it's probably known for the deathmatch stuff. It really is, but that was not what it was, and it still isn't what it was. It has never been like, oh, it's this deathmatch company. It never was that. And that's what I think I really loved about it, because you know, a lot of people ask me what I want out of professional wrestling and what I always want to produce, and I always want that something for everybody, you know, because you had
DJ's just frozen again, guys. He will be back in just a quick second. Won't be too long, but guys, also check out.
Why do we keep having connection issues?
I'm
okay, there we go.
There you go.
I have no clue why we keep having connection issues. My apologies.
Okay.
But back to what I was saying is, it was always that something for everybody, because you had the young guys on early, and then you had some weird characters that were just kind of funny and, you know, off, or had these you know, characters that just were odd. You know, it's like this person doesn't fit in. Then you had like these hard hitting just guys who just beat the living crap out of each other. Then you had these guys that can do these incredible acrobatic, insane, flippy, fast-paced matches. Then you had these great stories. And it gave you something for everybody. And there was always like hey, there's a guy coming in, or there's this thing. And you always had something to look forward to. And then at the end of the night, there was always this big, crazy death match. Now, it didn't always happen,
Yeah.
but when it did, it was unlike anything you would ever see. And you would see the guys like the Wife Beaters and Nick Mondos and, and John Zandig and stuff early on. And it really, I think, really gave me something that I was always looking for, because I love that buffet of professional wrestling. I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of things right now is a lot of it's the same.
Yeah.
And nothing really stands out to me. And nothing's like, okay, if I come to a wrestling show, if I'm not getting something I want, I don't want to come back. So at least I'm getting something I want there, regardless of what it was. And that's what I really loved about it. And, it wasn't just being at the arena, because that to me was special anyway. But,
Yeah.
I was in Champs, back when we were in a beat up soccer stadium, I was at the first Tournament of Deaths. I was there, already, even when you're there, being a young guy there, it's still very special. You're kind of thinking to yourself that, it's such a different thing. And it really just grabbed me because it was unlike anything else.
Oh, 100%. And, you mentioned, John Zandig being, the father figure of CZW. What was the experience like when you first met him? He seems like a very intimidating guy. Like, just from seeing him on the screen, he looks like a guy that would beat the living shit out of you and be a pretty scary guy to approach. How was it when you first met John? Was he approachable? Was he intimidating?
I mean, knowing John the way that I've known him over the years, I mean, our relationship has changed and grown and gone in a lot of different directions at a lot of different times. But John always had a watchful eye on everything. He didn't, if you weren't in his circle of friends or people that he associated with, you kind of like, he just like kept an eye on you and would give you that "good job, kid" type conversation. And we used to make comments. We're at the arena. Zandig used to sit up in the balcony, and he would be up in the balcony, and there wouldn't be a whole lot of people that would go up there. It would be the production people, and John would be sitting there, and it was just like, it's like climbing to all Mount High, and you're like, approaching the mighty god of ultraviolence, and like, so many people. There's so many stories that go to that. And it was kind of, when you first meet him, a little intimidating, and because here's this guy who's, one, at that time, he was very jacked. He's definitely a man's man type guy. And, it was one of those things where you're like, wow, this is a man. This is a guy who, he's not going to take it. Like, what you saw with Zandig was what you got with John. And that's how he was in the beginning. As our relationship went on, that changed a lot, through many different correlations to what it is now. But it's just so intimidating. Like, he's not somebody back then that I can see people just like walking up to going, "Hey, what's up?" No, that's not how it was.
Yeah, no, I can imagine people aren't walking up, throwing up the Zandig at him as approaching. But, as far as, when you started wrestling for CZW, you said you were around about the first Tournament of Death.
A little before then, yeah.
When did you make your debut for Combat Zone Wrestling?
I made my debut for CZW at some random show in 2004. At that point, I'd probably already been wrestling for places like the Samoans and, smaller places, doing, really not knowing much, because I'm just a big guy, and it was one of those things, like, people probably knew me at the arena. They used to call me DJ the door guy, because I was always by the front door, because I was a big kid and you weren't gonna mess with me. And
that's
because that's where the money is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you always put the big, crazy, tough looking guys at the front door, because that's where the bouncers are. And where the money is, you want to protect the money. And I remember like we were just working out before the show, and I, just doing what we normally do in the ring. And I remember John came to me. He's like, "So you're booked today?" And I was like, "I'm booked today?" I was like, "I don't even have gear." He's like, "Got your training stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah," it's because I left it in my car. Yeah. And he's like, "Well, just go get it on. You're wrestling. You're tagging with Dahmer." And then walked away from me. And I was like, "What the?" I had no clue what was going on. And the next thing I know, we go out there and we're in like some tag match, and it's very intimidating. And for me, it was intimidating on a lot of factors. One, huge crowd. At that time, I mean, CZW was drawing, and like every single show, it didn't matter what was going on. Two, I'm in the arena. Like, this was a big deal to me. Like, this was like something that, when people go back and they wrestle in the 2300 arena or some of these famous, places, I tell people, take it in, because you don't know if it's going to happen again. Take it in, like realizing this was a place that I fell in love with. Now, don't get me wrong. At that point, that place was not what it is today, because today that place is gorgeous. Back then, it was a crappy warehouse bingo hall, but I didn't care. It was a big deal to me. Yeah. And then it was wrestling for CZW. And I believe that I went out there in like an Under Armour outfit, which I literally, like, I wear Under Armour all the time. And it was like when Under Armour first came out. Yeah. And it was like all black. And I was just trying to figure out and they were like, "Well, we don't want you to do what you do at other places." Like, Dahmer was like, "No, you can't be this. You got to be something different." And I was just like, and I remember talking about going out there and like the whole idea behind the DJ Hyde character that we had was like, I was supposed to eventually have a girl, because that was how I ended up getting in prison. And it was like a big joke. It was like, the girl is what turns me into DJ Hyde. And and I vaguely remember Zandig came up with that idea. And we were just trying to find the right girl for a while. And
DJ will be back in a sec, guys. Just cut out there for a quick moment. But guys, go ahead, click that subscribe button, share, like, hit the bell to stay notified.
DJ, it's just going to keep kicking us out. I don't know why it does that. So my apologies to the fans watching and anybody else. But again, back then it was one of those things, like, it just came up and it was like, okay, this is who you are. And we went out there and we wrestled in a tag match against guys that I had, been training with, like, Sozio or Niles Young back then, and Corey Castle and guys like that. And I was tagging with Dahmer, who was pretty much that, he was the head trainer. He was he was kind of like the established veteran guy. And
it won't be a sec, guys. DJ's just had a connection issue. He will be back momentarily. But guys, if you are listening to us on any podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star review. Okay. Leave us a comment, what we're doing well, what we're not, just so we can help grow and bring you some of the best content out there today. DJ, welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know why he keeps doing that, but pay a lot of money for internet in my house, and it doesn't work, especially on an iPad. But oh well. But like I said, like back then, it was kind of mind blowing to me, and it was real intimidating. Mm-hmm. And when you're young and you're only a couple years into the wrestling business, you really don't find yourself for a while. And I was a young kid back then. I've been wrestling for 20 some years now, and I'm 43 years old and beat up, that's for sure. And it's like one of those things where you're thinking like, oh man, I'm only like 20 years old and I'm out here doing this. Is like awesome. And now I'm looking at guys like, you should see some of my students now. I mean, I have this one girl who's fit.
We're just having an issue there with DJ's internet. He will be back in just a second, guys. It only cuts out for a moment. But as I said, check out some of those amazing sponsors we've got. Sleeves.com. Use promo code MWAPod to get that 10%. Man,
you are a shiller. I love it. Come work for me, man. I'm gonna have to figure something out for this, and we're gonna have to do another interview at some point, because I hate it when we get cut off. but back then, like I said, it was just such a mind-blowing experience to be in that environment and be in that, you know, and an honor, because there are so many people that just, you know, they didn't get the opportunity that I got, because people would cut their left arm off to wrestle in CZW.
Yeah, I love when you, even when you did make your debut, for memory, hearing back some of the commentary where they're calling you like the 1 year veteran or the 2 year veteran or something like that. I'm sitting there because it's like you're a young guy, like early 20s, but I think when you're 6'4" and you're that build, people always go, "Oh, you're much older than what you actually are." Like,
one of the things that's really hard about being back then is like when you're wrestling on shows that are not, CZW is a revolutionary style of a product. It takes a while, especially being a big guy, to understand that, because you're kind of taught like, no, don't go out there and do this. Don't bump. Don't do crazy stuff. Don't, you know, like, you're a big guy. Like it's not that. And, you know, you go out here and do choke slams and, you know, stupidness. And you're just like, but I can do all these other things. You know, I have abilities to do this stuff. And, you know, I'm not 7 foot, you know, it's one of those things. See, Lowrider jumped on. Okay. But like I said, like it's a very frustrating situation when you come into that and you're just like, okay, you can only do X, Y, or Z. And then you have to understand that, like, when you're out learning the indies, and before I really got to CZW and figured out, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I need to take chances. Maybe I need to not sell as much. Maybe I need to do X, Y, or Z, because the style is so different, where you're wrestling on these like family friendly, you know, cartoony, and you're out here and you're just throwing little guys around, and it's not that any, you know, it's not that there.
yeah,
It's it's go in, go hard, or go home. And you have to figure that out really early. And it was definitely a change for me, because in CZW for a long time, there was no one physically my size. And it was kind of like, okay.
DJ will be back in a sec, guys. He is just having a quick internet problem. We have had issues, but we do work through them just to make sure. But it only is brief. But as I said, guys, make sure that you do go check out that promo code MWA Pod for both our sponsors, Sleeves and the healthvape.com, and get that 10% off.
Yeah, see, every time I cut out, it gives you a chance to plug. I love it.
I'll take every chance I get, DJ.
Yeah, well, you guys definitely need it. I mean, I hope people definitely support you.
Thank you very much. But, you know, I wanted to ask you, because with CZW, you know, you mentioned, you know, teaming with Dharma, then you guys had a feud. You know, was the putting you against Dharma as a feud a planned thing? Was it a test for you to see, like, okay, let's see how DJ goes more on a singles run. Let's put him in a feud with Dharma. Was he the safest bet? What was the whole reason behind that feud for you guys?
To be honest, like, one of the things about John that you'll learn very well, pretty much his booking style, nobody knew what he wanted until, like, he wanted it. And, you know, one of the things that was kind of big about Dahmer was guys that were in the school and training. I was the first student who actually just beat him in his first match, and I just beat him clean. And it was just like a weird, odd thing at that point. And I don't know if it was kind of a test or if it was, hey, we need you to be in this role, or what John was thinking at that time. And I mean, to me, I had a lot of fun with it, because we wanted to do a lot of stuff. Like, we had tons of ideas, but like I said, like, you never know. John would be just like, oh, no, this is what I need. And that would be it. And you would kind of just be like, well, this don't make sense, or, you know, this or that. And, you know, kind of just do what the boss tells you, because you're just sitting here going, okay, well, all right, whatever, screw it, we're right, do what we're told, and move on. So I don't really know if there was a plan or what. I know back then there was, I mean, cards had 13 to 15 matches on them, and it was just, it felt like shows never ended. So you know, it was one of them things where, you know, you're just doing all this stuff and you're just like, come on, got to get my 7 minutes in.
At that stage, because you are known for doing a lot of, you know, having some bloody wars.
Mm-hmm.
At that stage, were you always, when you got to CZW, were you like, I want to be a deathmatch guy, I want to go in there, go in there? Like, where was your thought going in there? How did you go into getting into?
So, at the Samoans, when I first started training with them years before I got to CZW, Alpha said to me, he said, son, you need to be able to do hardcore because top guys do hardcore and you're going to be a top guy. And I never really understood it, but if you look at main event guys and you look at champions and you look at them, you know, they're guys that are they're going to do the big hardcore matches. They're going to do, you know, what you would call a death match, or, you know, in WWE terms, they're going to be in the Hell in the Cells and,
Yep.
you know, and things along those lines, that you need to be able to work in that environment and understand it. And on the independent scene, it's so much different because you can't just go out there and half-ass it. You know, you can't go out there and just do a basic match. You got to give people a little something more. And, you know, one of the things that I'm very proud of is I've done a lot of insane, stupid, nuts things that, you know, my body regrets every day now.
Yeah.
But I work at a bank again, and I work for Barclays during the day, and, you know, I can go in the office and, you know, barring that, you know, probably losing my hair a little bit, but it's part of getting old. You're gonna feel that, Piers. Yeah, I
Hey,
know.
man.
I can tell. Barring that, it's you know, I don't look like I've done that many death matches. Like it was a very good learning experience, learning how to properly do things. Like, you know, how to work. Like Zandig taught me how to work within light tubes, like how to work with barbed wire. Nobody really teaches that at a wrestling school. I do, but why things are a certain way, how to do things a certain way, how to position things a certain way, and understanding why these things are done this way. And that was one of the huge benefits that I got from CCW. It was always about, hey, you know, you might need a real job someday type of thing. And Tommy Dreamer told me that, and that's why it sticks out in my head. And, you know, out of all these hardcore things that people do, you don't want to have a forehead like Dusty Rhodes. You don't want to, like, I love Matt Tremont, I truly do, but Matt's like 33 years old and his head looks, you could stick forks in it and they'll just stay there. And, you know,
That seems like the kind of guy that would have that as like a badge of honor.
It's crazy, but you can with Matt. And I've been doing this a lot longer. I mean, and, you know, one of the things that I benefited from it was I learned how to do all this. I never came in with the intention of, oh, I'm going to be a deathmatch wrestler, and that's what I want to do. You know, because I know some guys, that's what they want. You know, they want to go out there and do that style and do that and only that and nothing else. And that was not me. I came in with the every intention of, okay, I'm going to be a top guy. And if I'm going to be a top guy, I need to know this. And I love this place. So I need to be able to do this here. Because if they come to me and ask me, I better know. And, you know, guys like Zandig and Nick Gage and all them, you know, early on, like, you know, they all had difference of opinions, but I learned so much so fast of like, hey, do this, do that, you know. And these are guys that it's what they do, you know, and it's how you get up and do it the next day. So it was such a great education to now I am one of the few schools who I do teach deathmatch wrestling. I don't do it a lot, but I don't want you to go to some show as a young guy and somebody put you out there and go, okay, you're doing this today. And you'll just go, okay. And then the next thing you know, you come back and you got a big scar up your back, or, you know, you you didn't know how to take thumbtacks properly, and then just
Yeah.
it's just not worth it if you don't know what you're doing.
And that's the thing. Like I speak to a couple of the deathmatch guys here, and it's like one of the things that Joel Bateman says, who's probably one of the top deathmatch wrestlers in Australia, and he's like, he's had matches with guys not realizing what they're about to go in and do, like mentally, and then when they get there, they freeze. And he's like, sometimes he goes, I've had to tell him, you're here now, you're in it. Like, we got to go through this. You know what I mean? And he goes, I've end up taking more punishment because of that. He said, but like, he goes, a lot of people, he goes, don't realize how mentally tough it is to do a death match.
It's not always about the, how just you got to be a tough guy and you got to sit back and take it.
No.
And it's not really about that. It's more about knowing how to work within your environment. Don't get me wrong. I see all the jokes on silly things that I've done and stuff like that. It's, where the gifts, there's that big popular gift where I'm in Japan and I go to break a light tube on my head and my hands are wet and it slipped out of my hand because I was spraying myself with so much water because I remember I was like thinking to myself, like, I think we're doing a fire spot or something. And like, I might end up taking it, and I was just like, I was just drenching myself at one point going, all right, I got to be prepared for this. And it just slipped out of my hand. I was like, what just happened? And I'm sure everybody has seen that gift because it pops up all the time. Don't think that I don't see it because I do. But it's one of those things where if you know what you're doing and you know how to do it, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your opponents, you're protecting a referee, which that's important too, because they're going to save your life in death matches. And if you know how to do certain things or know why you're doing certain things, it's very, very important.
Yeah. And I think deathmatch wrestling really gets, I think now it's probably in its peak. And I think for a few years there, like, 2000, early 2000s, it hit a rise, and then probably like 2010 to 2015, 16, 17, when it started to come in again, where it was looked at, kind of like it was looked like in the 90s, where it's like, this is, blood sport. But the thing is, what I enjoy about deathmatch wrestling is seeing how it's evolved over the years. You look at like a Tournament of Death 1 and compare it to a Tournament of Death 18, Cage of Death, Tournament of Death 18. Like I said, both amazing matches, but they're going to be able to project, different talents, and the style itself has evolved to being more than just while walking around a ring. You know what I mean? Like the stuff is teased more now, I find, than what it was years prior.
Well, I mean, I have my own opinions on things and how I'm doing a lot of things in the future. And there's a lot about deathmatch wrestling right now that I hate. There's also a lot that I like. So, but again, it's just a matter of opinions, and I don't think it's actually peaked. I don't think deathmatch wrestling has actually peaked at all. I think that it's just got to be. I think it's got a lot more room to grow a lot more. It's just a matter of, I think it's being accepted more, and I think people are starting to become comfortable with things because the entertainment of deathmatch wrestling is now becoming more common play, especially with the creation of AEW and them basically having Nick Gage on television.
That was wild to me. That was absolutely wild that Nick Gage was on television. I think AEW definitely chose a perfect spot to bring him out just after he's done Dark Side of the Ring. I think Nick Gage, his name was a hot commodity at that time while bringing him out, but I think it was great for Nick to have that recognition as well.
Again, there was good and bad to it. If I'm AEW, I would have signed Nick Gage in 2 seconds. I think Nick Gage is one of the few attractions left in wrestling right now. And it's not just that he's a deathmatch wrestler, because Nicky is so much better than people know he is. He's probably the best character in wrestling. He just gives people, like, when you see him, you just get pumped up. You feed off of him, and he's so good. So good.
Oh, absolutely. But, talking about, becoming a promoter, 2009, you buy Combat Zone Wrestling. what was the, like, were you always wanting to be a promoter? Was promoter that something in your mind, like, or did this just sort of fall in your lap, the opportunity to buy it? Like, how did this come to be?
There was really three things that really sparked it. One was I had a little bit of a WWE run and I kind of messed that up on my own accord. Which, you know, when I thought that that was not going to happen, you know, when I was like, okay, well, you're not going to get signed. You're not going to get a, you know, you're not going to be, you know, the next thing. And, you know, you had these opportunities and you blew them, which is part of the mistakes I made. You know, what are you going to do? Also, I had already been doing like small charity shows with Maven Bentley at the time. And it was more about like, I was a trainer, I was teaching people. I had an amazing class of students that, I mean, you're looking all over. I mean, they're all of them are on TV or you know, famous on the indie scene or something at this point. At that time, and I wanted to give them a platform. I didn't want them to kind of get lost in the shuffle. I wanted to give them opportunities, and I used to have ideas of how I thought wrestling should be, not what I had to do. And we got to do that a lot on some of these charity shows. And the other thing was I was already doing a ton of things behind the scenes at CCW, from, I mean, getting talent, because I was one of those guys who had John's ear at the time. I could, you know, I could talk to him about this guy or this guy. Hey, give this guy an opportunity. There's tons of people that got booked because of me. And, you know, I was at the school. I saw him a lot. It was one of those things where, you know, I was doing the merch. I had all the relationships with everybody. I knew pretty much everything. And at that time, financially, we were not doing well. Not for what we were spending. And John was going through a lot of personal things. You know, he had just lost his son, and, you know, that had to have been hard on him. And I remember when the first TOD, which was the TOD that Nick Gage got flown in out and helicoptered, and, you know, made him super legendary at my mom's and dad's farm. When that happened, I remember literally we had a building, and about a week and a half out, we didn't have a building, and I made it happen. I just went out there and figured it out and did all the work. And I remember John saying, you're going to be a good promoter someday. And then after TOD, which TOD was a rousing success, you know, the next show after that usually doesn't do very well. And I think, I remember the conversation where John was with me, Maven, and a couple other people, and he was just like, shut it down. And he was done. And I think it wasn't that he was just done financially. I think it was done mentally. He had gone through a lot of things that I go through now. And, you know, to him, it was not about business, I don't think. And which is sad because I kind of inherited that at times. It was more the personal stuff. You know, he was doing this because it was his guys and, you know, his family. And like to him, it was that way. And then I literally had a conversation. I talked to my family, and to be honest, I mortgaged my grandmother's house and, you know, took everything that was going to be my future and said, I'm going to buy a wrestling company. And I remember talking to everybody that was in my life at that time saying, I think I'm going to do this. I think this is going to be my life. And at that point, I'd already been making a living off of wrestling for a while. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. And, you know, at that point, I felt like the talent was my family and my friends and everybody that I loved, from John Moxley and Sami Callihan to Black G's and Joker and, you know, Nick Gage, everybody. And I just went in there and said, I'm going to do this. And then we wrote up a contract. I got people to look at it, and John, I don't even think John read it. He just signed it and was like, where's my money? You know, and he was out. And then he wanted to have his last show, which was Tangle Web 2, and he wanted to do it his way. And that was one of the big things, because I was very much like, no, I don't want people knowing yet. I'll do this my own way, like when I can figure out what I want to do. And he was like, nope, we're going to go do this out here. I'm going to pass the torch. And at that point, I think I was already like one of the worst guys the fans hated. I mean, they hated me. They still do. They hate me more now. But like the audience just was like, oh, man, I was one of the worst guys ever. And then you just hand the company over to me. And I think people thought it was an angle. You know, I think people were like expecting like, oh, this isn't real. You know, I mean, this is some kind of, you know, thing. And I remember walking in the back and I had like 5 people quit the first night, you know, and it was just like, because it wasn't John anymore. You know, he didn't tell anybody, and neither did I, besides like a few key people that I knew we needed. And, you know, whether it was from a production standpoint or a business standpoint or something, they needed to know. Because if I didn't have them on my team, I was screwed. And I don't like, none of the talent knew. Not even people I was closest with, besides Maven, because he helped orchestrate the deal. They didn't know. And John went out there, shook my hand, gave me a plaque, and was like, you know, after today, it's yours, kid. And, you know,
did any of the boys in the back think it was a work?
Some of them did it first. And, you know, it was one of those things, like he called everybody out to the ring and we were all like, what's going on? Like people were just like, if I recall, I was in like jean shorts and like a sleeveless shirt or something. And I didn't even think we were doing it then. I thought we were doing it at the end of the night. And he opened the show with it and he was like, nope, we're doing this. Gave people plaques. He basically said his goodbye and, you know, and moved on. And I think that's how we felt about it. And, you know, obviously there's more to that story later down the road, but that's how it works.
And you know, you mentioned, you know, you were one of the most hated guys in CZW, you know, from a storyline perspective and performance perspective. Do you think that if you weren't a heel that you would have been perceived differently coming out? Like if you think that you were a babyface, do you think that you would have been, because over the years I've seen online, like people have a lot of mixed reactions when it comes to you. It's either people love you or not so much. But do you think like if you were a babyface that trajectory would have been different for you? So we just had another pause, guys. DJ will be back in just a second. But as I said, guys, make sure you check out our website, mwapodcastnetwork.com. We got everything there for you guys. You can see upcoming shows, some of our past shows, and all of our content can be found at mwapodcastnetwork.com.
Just when you were saying a good thing about me, nobody says good things about me. You were saying from a heel perspective. So like with me, I don't believe in faces and heels. I never have. I think when I got smart to wrestling, I stopped doing that. I believed in characters, and I was just, they hated me because I was not him. They loved him. John was a man of the people. It was, you know, you're not John Zandig. And I was, you know, the bad guy. I was in that role. And I think at one point, like, didn't me and Danny Havoc or something, like, didn't me and somebody try to like steal me, you know, kill his grandson or something? It was a baby or something that John came up with some idea. And I was like, all right, whatever, fine. That's what you want. But like, you know, I don't think fans were ever going to accept it. Regardless, I took their CZW. It was their company, and turned it into what it was not theirs. It was mine. And, you know, and I was, as a character, I was.
So he's just had a quick freezing there. He will be, DJ will be back, guys. But make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram at MWA World. You can even find us on Facebook, MWA World 1. Check us out there. And also follow me and DJ on Twitter and Instagram.
Man, we're going to have to do this again at some point. I might have to do this on a laptop or hook it into a hard line or something. But again, I didn't think anybody was going to follow me. I didn't think anybody was going to like me. I mean, I know the first show that I came out as the owner, I came out in a suit, and I think John Moxley threw me headfirst through a pane of glass in a suit, and I was not John. And I think at that point, fans were never going to accept me. I didn't realize it, but I wanted to use it to my advantage. And I did at times, plenty of times, but the way the market is and the way the wrestling world has evolved really changed.
You mentioned before that when you took over and you bought CCW at Tangled Web 2, when the announcement was made, then you went back backstage and you mentioned that 5 guys resigned there on the spot. Are you able to tell us who those guys were?
Most of them were all backstage. I mean, probably one of the bigger ones that really concerned me at the time was Brian Logan. He was one of the refs. Yeah. You know, I mean, everybody called him Gee. I had known him for years. I mean, we didn't have the greatest relationship, but he was really good at what he did. And, you know, most of the other people were there for John. You know, like they were just John's people. They were more backstage and hands and people who helped out and just kind of, you know, all right, John's done, we're done. You know, none of them were really the talent. I think a lot of the talent was kind of excited for a lot of different reasons. Looking back on it, it was probably a lot of the wrong reasons. But, you know, I came in with some new, fresh ideas, and I wanted to go in my direction. And at that point I had, you know, I thought everybody was my friend, and, you know, your friends are going to support you.
Welcome to the wrestling business. It's one of those things though, like, you know, for when I talk to promoters that are performers as well, I find it interesting because, like, I've been at shows backstage and I know how stressful it is to have things running at 100%. As you know, a promoter / performer, do you find it harder to do your job as a promoter when you have to perform on the card? Like, how much added pressure is that for you?
It depends on your confidence level. Now it's a lot more challenging for me because now I'm not performing on CZW shows, and you probably won't see me as a performer on the show. Unless all hell breaks loose and I have to, but that's probably not going to happen. You have to understand that if I am the sole creative too, which at many times I was not, at many times I was not in charge of the book, even though people think I was. I would just say yes, no, or, you know, I would get talked into things, or I would, you know, say, okay, well, did you talk to this person? Because this is their job. And, you know, now that, you know, I don't have all those resources and those people to support me, it's much better that I'm back behind the scenes running everything. Sure. And watching what I'm trying to do come across, especially when it's successful. You'll see a lot of the stories that I think were successful in CZW during my reign. The difference between John's reign is the company was over. When I took over, talent got over and got jobs. You know, I got people signed. I got people noticed. I got us back to Japan. I got us back to Europe. I did things that were, you know, bridges were burned and blown up, and I rebuilt them. And that wasn't because I was a wrestler. And, you know, the problem is that I always need to be there. And, well, I work for free and I'm pretty good at what I do. And, you know, I think a lot of people are like, well, DJ's putting him over himself.
DJ will be back in just a short second, guys. But like I said again at the beginning of the episode, if you can please make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, hit that bell to stay notified every time we go live or release some new content.
Yeah, I literally hate that this keeps cutting out. It's making me crazy. Spend all this money on a very expensive iPad.
So
Anyway, like I said, a lot of people think that I put myself over a lot. I've never won anything. I've never won a champion, like not since I've owned the company. I haven't won a championship. Like I'm technically a tournament of death champion, technically, but that wasn't my reign. I am Iron Man champion. That wasn't my reign as ownership. It was, I was always going to go out there and tell stories and get the guy who was going to beat a guy over. Because if you beat me, I'm the bad guy. You know, if you beat me, they love you. And that's what matters. If it was, you know, Chris Dickinson, Sami Callihan, Matt Tremont, I mean, you all need those guys to go through that help make you stars. And that was always the role as a performer. The problem was when you are a performer, the locker room is a lot more different and what's going on. And at the end of the day, regardless of if things are your decisions, it's still you. The world still blames you for everything. They don't have to care or know why you do things. They just know that, well, you're the guy, so we're going to blame you and you're the bad guy. And that's what ends up happening. So, and it just made my reputation, especially with the audience, worse.
yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. In a way, you can easily spin that to make yourself obviously the ultimate heel of the company, which is eventually what you guys have done. But you know, you mentioned Sami Callihan. For a period of time, Sami was the booker, correct?
Correct. Sami was the booker. MLJ, John Carlo. I mean, we've had Mike Burns. There's been so many guys that are in charge of creative. That, you know, like what'll happen is I'll get to a point and I'll give them a run, and then if I don't see change within a very short period of time.
DJ will be back with us in just a second. As I mentioned before, guys, make sure you head to mwapodcastnetwork.com where you can keep up to date with all of our latest shows, all of our upcoming shows. So make sure you check it out.
You are so if I don't see change within a short period of time creatively, though, I try to make moves, because if I don't see that different.
DJ has just cut out again, guys. Again, our social media, MWA World on Twitter and Instagram. Please give us a follow. You can find me on Twitter at Piers Austin. You can also find me on Instagram at the Piers Austin. Do me a favor, hit that follow button, and much appreciated.
Piers, I have to apologize to you because I have no clue why I keep cutting out. I use this thing all the time for everything from Zoom calls to whatnot. So fans, support this good man, because the internet problem definitely has got to be on my end, because I don't know what's going on. And,
I appreciate it.
But as I was saying, we've had so many different people in charge of creative. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
You know, Sami Callihan, you know, I read he actually resigned straight after a best of the one of the best of the best series. Is that correct, or is there any truth to that story?
It was right after that he said he didn't want to do it anymore. Sami and me Sami's like my little brother. He's one of my best friends, and we would argue and fight. Sami is he's a genius when it comes to things like with wrestling. He's bad when it comes to things like business. So when it's not his money and he just goes and does.
Yeah, 100% right. That's the hardest thing about being a promoter, is the investing into the business side of things. DJ is having a bad internet day, but he will be back very shortly.
Yeah, I'm always back. Sami's a doer. He's a guy who, and
we will be back in just a second, guys, but make sure you head over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and the bell to stay notified. And we're back.
This is so frustrating. Sorry. Sami, as I was saying, he just goes out and does things and doesn't worry about like the business end of it. He's like, just don't worry about it, man. Just don't worry. I got it. It ain't your money. At the end of the day, I still got to pay my mortgage. You know, like at the end of the day, I have to eat. And, you know, we would argue about things. Just trust me, Deej. And then if it doesn't happen, even if it's not Sammy's fault, which a lot of times it wasn't, you gotta kind of go. And I think he was getting to the point where it was like I wasn't giving him the freedom he needed because he was bankrupting me at times, and just like he spent like, I think we brought in Penta and Phoenix for a couple of shows, and then one time he's like, "Oh, they need a flight home, man," and I was like, "Sammy, I thought we had this covered," and it was like the day of the show, and they had to like fly back to Mexico like the next day. So I'm like scrambling, trying to figure this out while the show's going on. And I'm just like, I think their flights cost a couple $1,000 because you have to get them the next day, and it's an international flight. And you're like, Sammy, we had them booked 3 months ago. Why did you? Because that's just how he is. He's like, oh man, we got it. It'll be taken care of. And, Sammy, even when he's booked other promotions, he always needs those guys. I mean, I've assisted him at other places too.
Oh, absolutely. And, the promoting side of things is very difficult in professional wrestling, especially when you're the owner and you want to make a profit on your shows. But, talking about making a profit, guys, make sure you head over and check out our merch at storefrontier.com/MWA World, where you can get all of our merchandise, buy a shirt, buy a can koozie, and help support us.
Now that we're going to keep cutting in and out, it's like a TV show with commercials.
It is. I've been able to do a lot of plugs in this show.
Yeah, I know, man. I apologize. I don't know why it's doing this. I work from home, and I never had problems with any of this. This is the first time. So, but I'll take the heat for it. So blame me. Everybody else blames me for everything anyway. So,
but one of the things I wanted to ask DJ, and obviously we saw 2020. Which was a pretty big year for wrestling, shows being shut down. We saw the speaking out movement, and your name got brought up in the speaking out movement a few times. Joey Janela almost looked like he had a personal vendetta against you.
He does.
Those allegations that were called out, I don't think you've ever addressed them, mate. Can you address them here with us?
I mean, I don't address an allegation, especially something that doesn't have facts. I can tell you people don't like me for a lot of reasons, because they don't get what they want. They didn't get booked how they want. I didn't let them play.
DJ will be back in just a short moment, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. And
there we go.
Back
to your commercial. I can say this. I think the biggest thing that people think is I licensed content and made a business deal that people really don't like. And, I talk a certain way, and I believe in certain things, and, I'm not the most professional person. But it's one of those things where, the licensing of footage to a third party, at the end of the day, I got to pay the rent.
Okay. I mean, DJ is just frozen again. He will be back in just a quick second, guys. But, DJ is referring to selling and distribution of CZW materials and WSU materials. I was just sort of briefing people what you were sort of explaining there. In doing that, by having that labeled the way that it was, it did stir the ear of a lot of people. And one of the people who was most vocal about that was LaFisto. Have you spoken to LaFisto since that? And have you guys come to some sort of speaking?
I would really like to. I've known Jen a long time. LaFisto. I mean, she stayed in my house. We've done a lot of great stories. I mean, I killed her doll, Pegaboo. She tried to stab me with a knife a couple of times. That was fun. And on a personal level, even when all that came out, I had no control over the namings of anything. I looked at it like I've been licensing content to Stonecutter since 2011. This particular deal was to get us on platforms and to bring in more dollars, which it is doing. which right now is helping us come back, especially since the pandemic, because that money has really gone a long, long way for us. And some of the other opportunities that are coming down because of that deal, that are going to happen specifically in 2022. Now, as long as the pandemic doesn't get any worse, literally the things and reasons I made that deal are starting to happen. And, you know, I understood why Mr. Carroll and that team named the things they did, but it's 2022. You can't do that anymore. And
DJ, we'll be back in just a short second, guys. We are going to be wrapping it up very shortly. CZW has been around since 1999, guys. It has been one of the most longest reigning promotions going. DJ, welcome back.
Yeah, every 2 minutes. But again, I had no control over those. Nobody was complaining about the men's stuff or the hardcore stuff. It was pretty much the girls stuff. And I could see their point, but even like Lufisto, like I was the one who messaged her and said, "Hey, I have no control over this." And she didn't believe me. And, I can't go out there and bury my business partners on things and, and say, "Hey, they're trying to sell a product, and they think this sells." And I don't disagree because I've seen the numbers. You have John Moxley, who's basically one of the biggest stars in wrestling, and that girl stuff sells 3 times better than he does. I don't know why it does, but it does. I own WSU. House-wise, WSU doesn't draw that well, but on tape, it sells really well. And that's the business side of it. And that's what, he believes in, and that's how he marketed it.
It's unfortunate.
And you froze.
There you are. But it's interesting to talk about and hear that perspective inside of it, because I think there has been a lot of sort of heat thrown at DJ over the years because of it. But one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, DJ, was Cage of Death a couple of years back, where Brett Lauderdale, Nick Gage, they jump the guardrail, they jump in the cage. From what I heard, that it was an idea that was pitched to you. You nixed the idea, and the idea went ahead anyway. You as the promoter that day, like when you've just had your biggest show of the year, Cage of Death. 3 guys, Shane Strickland, Lance Warner, and Ricky Shane Page, I believe, go out there and just tear it down. What was your thoughts going on in your head when that happened? When you've got word that these guys have jumped your cage and gone into your ring.
Prior to us coming on, I said there may be some things I legally cannot discuss. That is one of them. For said reasons, I can't get into discuss certain people and certain companies. Legally, I can't mention them or talk about them or make references to them. So unfortunately, my hands are a little bit tied there in answering that question.
Sure. No problem at all. I will leave it at that, but Nick Gage, who is, still going and, a CZW original, where did the relationship with him and you guys break down though? Can you explain that to me?
I don't think the relationship with me and Nikki ever really has broken down. I still have tremendous respect for Nick Gage. I still consider Nick Gage a great asset to any brand. And I would book Nick Gage tomorrow if he wanted to come in and we could work something out financially. I said earlier, I think Nikki is one of the probably only true attractions left in independent wrestling. I mean, he's just become such a different entity. Right. Again, even all of our interactions, even recently, up until probably about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, was the last time I actually seen him, have not been negative at all. I have a great admiration for him. And, if Gage called me tomorrow and said, bring me in, Deej. He'd have a spot. I can tell you that, and I would 100% be open to it.
Yeah, there you go. But look, we are going to start wrapping up the show now, guys. It is that time for Guess the Aussie Slang with Piers. So how this works, DJ, I'm going to give you an Australian slang word. I'm going to put it in a sentence. It could be a phrase. And you're going to tell me what it means. It's just a fun little game that we play here. Are you ready to get going?
Sure, as long as I don't cut out for the millionth time. So let's make it rock and roll.
All right. First one is brekkie. Hey, DJ, did you eat your brekkie today?
Maybe breakfast?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, wow. See, look at this.
There you go. Yeah, breakfast is right. Okay, so next one we got is bottle-o. Hey, mate, do us a favor. Pick us up a slab at the bottle-o.
A slab at the bottle?
Yes, pick us up a slab at
Is that like a grocery store?
No, it's actually a liquor store where you go and buy beer, and a slab is like a case of beer.
I'm learning new things every day.
There you go. Here's another one. Fucking oath, mate. Fucking oath.
Fucking oath. Go fuck off. I don't know.
No, go. So fucking oath means, yeah, fuck yeah. That's very true.
Oh, okay. Well.
So next one is bludger. My brother Barry is a dead set bludger.
Asshole.
Yeah, I'll give you that. A bludger, someone who's very lazy, who doesn't really want to do much. Yeah, sit around. Yeah, we'll give you that one. Okay, so next one is budgie smuggler, which is okay. I'll put it in a sentence for you. Budgie smuggler. Fuck, it's a warm day. Oh shit, my dad just turned up at my house and he's out in my pool. He's wearing his budgie smuggler again.
You might as well hit the wah 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 already because I don't know that. That's it. What's that? What is that?
So a budgie smuggler is a speedo, but we call it a budgie smuggler.
Wow.
Yeah, so we call it a budgie smuggler because when you get out of the water, it looks like you're smuggling a budgie. So anyway, moving on. So we got a couple more here that will go. Okay, next is coppers. Hey, look out for the coppers.
The police.
Yeah, that's correct. There you go. You got that correct one. All right. Next is Dunny. Hey, DJ, where's your Dunny at?
Girlfriend, wife?
No, a dunny is a toilet, aka a shit.
Where's your toilet at?
Where's your dunny at? Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, long drive. Oh, mate, it's been a long drive. Where's your dunny at?
Sounds like something you would say in Japan.
All right, so we're gonna have another one here. Oh, mate, you should see my wife. She is going off her tits. Off her tits.
Like crazy.
Yeah, like just going off a brain.
Yep.
So, all right.
Word.
So, next one that we got here is, mate. You see ScoMo on the news? ScoMo.
That guy?
No. So ScoMo is short for Scott Morrison, who is our Prime Minister. That's the nickname that Australians have called him, is ScoMo.
Really? I would not have known that one at all.
All right. Here's another one.
I want Australian dictionary.
I'll send you one. Okay. Next is, hey, Deej, you want to come over to my house and we'll drink some piss? Some piss. There you go. That's it.
Yeah, I know that one.
That has been Guess the Australian Slang with Piers. DJ, thank you very much for playing and being a part of the game.
And I didn't even cut out during the game, probably because I moved.
There you go. But DJ, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I'd love to get you on again sometime. Hopefully,
I'm definitely would love to come back on and not have problems. I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about. Love to talk about the future of CZW and all the new things we're doing.
That's one thing I wanted to talk about as well. Is I've just seen, you know, the last 2 shows that you guys uploaded onto CCW Studios. Completely different look, completely different, you know, thing, new branding for Combat Zone Wrestling. You know, what have you guys got planned for 2022 for all of the CZW?
So the company is actually going to split into, I mean, it's all going to be under the CZW umbrella. But we're going to change a little bit of the brandings. We built out a studio. We have another venue in Maryland, and in Maryland, the Athletic Commission won't let you do anything at all, which is horrible, but it's got booze and it's a fun venue, and it looks great. Definitely high production and building characters. I think all the biggest complaints are there are no death matches. I can just say that you will be seeing the Ultraviolent Underground return in 2022, which will lead and build into Tournament of Death, which will happen this year, barring any crazy COVID, you know. I mean, numbers right now are kind of nuts with this Omicron thing.
Yeah, same.
But the Ultraviolent Underground will become a more regular thing that will appeal to just that market. And the main shows will be very, very story-based and long-term telling of stories that'll build into character gimmick matches that'll build into like the Cage of
building into the Cage of Death. DJ was just saying, but guys, we are about to wrap this up. You know, DJ has been giving us an hour and 20 minutes of his time, and yeah, we really appreciate everything. But
and now I'm back again. Look, see, I opened my mouth cut out.
But you know, I definitely think we should get you back on it again, DJ. Talk about
next time. I'm getting on my main computer. I'm not doing that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the future, and you know, our school is definitely something. We've merged with the Wild Samoan Training Center now. I've actually taken it over, so that's something new too. But we have a lot going on and a lot of new things that we're going to be doing in 2022. It's just a matter of, you know, we're trying to get there, and hopefully we will. But we're going to go back to being the CZW that everybody knows and loves before you know it.
There you go, guys. Make sure you go follow Combat Zone Wrestling on all social media platforms. Go and check out Combat Zone Wrestling, czwrestling.com, and also check out czwstudios.com with all of their past content. Also on Independent Wrestling TV. Go and subscribe there to go and catch out the amazing back catalog that CZW has to offer with some of the biggest names in the wrestling business has seen over the last 15 to 20 years. But DJ, again, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And guys, until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon. It is me, Piers, and we'll see you then. Peace.